I will often tell people that it is not your parents' responsibility to believe in your dreams. It is your responsibility. And it is also this when you know something to be true internally, it becomes like this moral duty of yours to step into it, to stand into it, to embody it. And if you're not doing that, then you're doing, as you'd say, like you're doing your soul an injustice.
The career archetypes.
Yeah, the career archetypes. This is the space level pattern that I believe resides at the bottom of your soul that indicates and helps you to anchor into what your calling is.
This is the Roxanne Show. Get ready. It's time to rise. So for the record, I did not get the memo that we would be matching.
Yeah.
This is
brilliant.
It's absolute alignment, and I'm running with it because why not? I think it looks good on both of us. So I'm so happy to be here with you, Joel.
Great start. It's a great start.
So you are in Australia. It is your morning. And how are you feeling today? How's your heart today?
Yeah, like, honestly, I'm just sort of just waking up. I just told you that I had some coffee coming to it. But I'm excited to get into things. I'm excited to talk and explore what you want to speak about and obviously go where you want to go. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm going to read out some of your writing. You have a brilliant Substack. I am such a lover of Substack. That is where it's a gallery of my art, for my writing, at least outside of the books. And when I came across your Substack last year, I really resonated with you, with your work, with your message and what you're putting out in the world. So I actually want to start with a quote, and we're going to go through some of your writing, and I'd love for you to elaborate after I read some quotes. But this first one is, I left my 9-to-5 desk job over half a decade ago. Part of me knew that there had to be more. This couldn't be all that there was. I'd love to go back to that moment and just however you feel like, illustrating it for us. What was going on in your life at that time?
Yeah, I was in an insurance company and I was doing claims assessment. And so essentially I was having to manage people that had lost or damaged their parcels. And I was walking into work every single day, going through these claims, and it was just this very mundane routine. Every single day was the same. And I was walking to my computer every day. And I just remember just looking around thinking, this cannot be all that there is. And even when I started to speak to people around me, they weren't very inspired to do anything differently. They were very much talking about things that they'd seen on the news, things that they'd seen on TV. I was just in a place where it's like, there has to be something more. There has to be something that can go beyond this. And so it was just out of that frustration that I started to look at different opportunities, different avenues, different ways of life, different ways of being. I'd seen some people on social media, and I do love social media for that it just brings out people who are living differently, but it just wasn't the norm from where I was. A lot of people are walking just this very linear path, and I knew exactly where that was going. And I myself could see that I didn't want to go there. I didn't know what I wanted to move into, but I just knew that the path that I was currently on, this isn't the path for me.
So just to double click on that a little bit, what were you feeling inside? Can you just give off obviously something didn't feel right, but what were some of the actual feelings that you had?
Yeah.
That were telling you something's off?
There was a big feeling of in the morning dread, just this deep, I do not want to go into work today. I do not want to do this. And it just felt like this trudging through the mud. There was so much friction just to walk into the door to even start the day. And it was this feeling of, trudging through the mud, trudging through the snow. This is really difficult. And there was also a sense of when I'd feel that, I'd want to push it down as well. I didn't want to feel those feelings. So when I did feel those feelings originally in the morning, I'd be like, just get it done, push it down. You can get back home later on in the day. And that definitely happened as well, where I'd want to dismiss those feelings, repress those feelings, ignore them. And there was a sense as well that other people were doing that, but maybe they weren't aware of that. And that was sort of my first initial inclinations that other people were potentially repressing those feelings themselves or had done so for years. I'd meet some older colleagues who would be quite cynical, and you could see that they had just a lot of uh, body armor, or they would have just a lot of like rigidity to them. And there was that sense of, okay, I think some people are numbing it, and I think I'm doing the same.
And where did you go to school for something specific, or what walked you into that specific job? What yeah, how did you get there?
Yeah. So I was doing a psychology degree, and I got a psychology
Okay.
degree. I graduated. I still remember walking through off the stage and thinking to myself, like, this isn't quite it. So I got it, and everyone was like, "Yay!" And I was like, "Yay, kind of." Like, this isn't exactly what it is. And so I knew I didn't want to go ahead and move forward. I could have continued on that path. So I said no to that. And then I was in this sort of no man's land and just wandering around. And then I needed to pay rent. So, okay, I need to get a job. My brother recommended me that job. And so I ended up in that insurance role. And that's how I landed there. But it was just this place of aimlessness. Yeah.
Well, so psychology feels very suiting. I never went to school for psychology, but I'm like the love seat psychologist, because just innately, and I love human behavior. I've always been an observer. I've been a writer my whole life. So I've been very introspective my whole life and just sort of philosophizing with life and myself. And I sense that with you deeply in your work. I can feel that it's really coming through you. It's not just upstairs. And so I wonder the move to get that degree, uh, even though you had that feeling when you walked off stage, do you feel, especially even now, do you feel that that was a true move for you? Like it was really something that you legitimately felt a calling towards, but then you just didn't know what to do with it per se after you graduated
Yeah.
when you had to pay rent?
Yeah. In a way. So I got this feeling of I should be doing something that is able to explore people. There was something going on there, and so I was getting pulled in that direction. I think where I went wrong, and where sometimes I see other people go wrong, is that I looked for it in a place that there was already like this laid out, this is how to do it. And so I said, okay, then I should do it like the psychologists, so in this traditional manner, and walk those steps, rather than finding the scent as to how to go about it in my own way, in the way that I should be doing it. And so that's not to say that walking that path is wrong or anything like that. It's just that for me, it was incorrect. And for some of the people that I know get really pulled into what I call these temptation paths, these paths that can take us off track, that can take us towards things that aren't meant for us, that can seduce us by like, hey, it sort of fits the thing, but it's not the actual thing. They can, those have we've got to be aware of those. And I wasn't quite aware of what my temptation paths were. And that's how I ended up getting that degree. And if I was to do it again, I wouldn't do that. I can find the information and knowledge through books and libraries and on Google and places like this. But yeah, so I did feel the pull.
You felt the pull. And I'm going to read this quote from you as well, because you kind of walked us right into this. It's going to be great to unpack. I discovered that the way most of the world pursues career paths is fundamentally broken. They choose their path because, quote, at least I don't hate it. They choose their path because, quote, it pays the bills. They choose their path because, quote, what would others think of me if I did something they don't understand? You have no idea because you're just getting to know me, but you are speaking to my soul. I am the anti template girl, by the way, but we could talk about that later. Um, it's funny, like publicly, I'm like, fuck templates. Um, which I'm sure you already understand, but I don't need to unpack that. But please tear into that, because look, I know even just right now in my life, there's women that I mentor and I see it. I just see it all the time. It's this settling and it's this, rationalizing with like just how you perfectly put in that quote, at least I don't hate it. At least it pays the bills. And I really love how you also quoted, what would others think of me if I did something they don't understand? That is a really powerful statement.
Hmm. And that honestly just comes through experience of having to deal with the world and having to explain. that I'm walking a particular path, as well as working myself with people who themselves are walking particular paths that are a little bit alternative, a little bit different, and having to deal with the perception of things. I remember when I ended up coming to an understanding that I was a philosopher, and the first step in moving that direction, I had to start to express it in public in some form to let people know that, hey, this is how you can see me now. I'm different than how you've known me throughout high school, throughout my early 20s. And there was this instance where this person was delivering a couch, and he delivered the couch because we were my girlfriend was like redoing the lounge and whatnot, and he asked me what I did, and I was like, philosopher. Like I kind of just like slid it in there. And he sort of just like looked at me and was like, "That's kind of strange." And I remember him just saying like, "Oh, that's different." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I suppose it is different." Uh, and that was my first like, slip in of like, "Here, this is what I'm doing." And he took it like a little bit that was strange, and I remember feeling a little bit of momentum in the right direction. It didn't mean anything to him, right? It was just like a moment that's weird, moving on.
Right.
But to me, it was like, oh, I've
Right.
presented something in the wild. And there was other moments as well where just people would say things like, you can't do that. You have someone told me that you've got to someone else has to tell you you're a philosopher, so they'll try to tell me how I could be or how I could identify. And a lot of that, like a little bit of combat for a while, was required in order to be able to stand in what it was that I was meant for. And so there are these people that have to deal with parents. I was lucky; my parents were amazing with it, but people have to deal with parents, peer groups, friends. Like, hey, this is who I am, and this is the direction I'm going, and they immediately will cast these like beady eyes of judgment, and they'll just be like, well, should you? Well, that's probably not going to work out, and you have to sort of be ready for that, and you have to be able to fight for what you know to be true internally. So that is where that piece was coming from.
Yeah, that's oh, it's amazing because first of all, it's so badass. You are absolutely a philosopher, and I can see how that doesn't necessarily people think philosopher and they're thinking
Yeah,
Socrates, right? They're
yeah.
not, 2025, they're not really putting that together, and it's hard to sort of register. So and I also relate to that experience in my own life because I'm living my dharma now. My the big part of my career life prior to all that I do now, which I'm a writer, I'm a speaker, entrepreneur, but I was a celebrity makeup artist, and that went on for almost 20 years of my life. And I remember when I launched my podcast, and it was over 7 years ago. And my launch at the time, I didn't know anything about launching, was an Instagram post. But still, I was the day that I was hitting post and I was letting, everybody that knows me as, the beauty girl, the jujitsu girl, I'm an athlete. And all of a sudden it's like, whoa, and here's a podcast. And back then too, podcasts, people didn't even, it wasn't a thing really yet. It was just emerging.
Mhm.
Um, but I remember the feeling for me of like, holy shit, I'm putting this out there, Uh, and it was a moment, but it was a declaration just to say, I've always been multi-passionate, and it's a lot of people who actually, um, for my past career, they're like, yeah, this makes so much sense just knowing me. So, but I really do relate to you, but I think philosophers even, that's some whole next level shit, but it is absolutely appropriate just getting to know you and your work. Um, Also the part about how you have to sort of grapple to stand in your truth. This is really powerful too, because a core subject of mine, a through line in all of my work is authenticity, your authentic self. And I relate the authentic self to like, it's the extension of your soul, right? It's not just being real. It's what do you truly want to say yes to in your life? And what do you truly want to say no to? And that's not always going to fly well, when you're actually operating from your authenticity, and people like you, parents, loved ones, society might have an issue with it. In fact, one of my favorite essays of yours, posts, is the parental blasphemy and the non-believers. I was reading that and I was literally out loud like, fuck yes. Because again, it really, I know just through my own life, I have a very supportive family, but they didn't always understand what, I was doing moving around the world. And you really do have to stand true. You have to stand with yourself. And that is not easy to do. And most people really do. And I say it with compassion and empathy. I understand why, it's a challenge. I mean, we can pin it down to the way our brains are hardwired, right? We don't want to get kicked out of the tribe. And so this idea of having to be okay with being misunderstood just so that you could stay true to your calling is really important and powerful. And so I love that this is something that you speak to
Mm,
in your work. It's really important.
yeah. I will often tell people that it is not your parents' responsibility to believe in your dreams. It is your responsibility. And it is also this when you know something to be true internally, it becomes like this moral duty of yours to step into it, to stand into it, to embody it. And if you're not doing that, then you're doing, as you would say, like you're doing your soul an injustice. And so when people are always looking for, like, I really want my parents to believe in what I do, like, I wish they did. I wish they did. But if they don't, like, what direction are you going to go in? Are you going to live a life for them? Are you going to live a life for yourself? So really taking on that moral responsibility that, hey, this is my calling and that this is my responsibility to believe in it first and foremost before anyone else. Whether or not anyone else believes, that is on you and that is your job. And that is really, really important to take on. It is a struggle. And that's one of the reasons why so many people don't pursue that path because they're just so worried about mom, dad, what are they going to think? What are they going to say? Mum really wanted me to go and become a lawyer. It's like, it's not in the cards for you. That's not what your soul wants you to do. Sorry, that's something else. You have to step into
I
that.
know. How do you feel about, when we bring in the soul, which is always a part of the conversation for me, but have you found in your work that there's a bit of a struggle when that part comes in, meaning, people, the the landscape has been this, I'll even go into your specific words, but this very linear path: go to school, you know, get a degree, you get the job, you retire at a certain point. Like, it's just boom, 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 boom. And we've never, no part of the soul was, there was no conversation about the soul in this part, right? It was just like, you have this very specialized, whatever that is, focused job, you get paid because that's how we survive. Then you retire and then you die. And hopefully you enjoyed
Yeah.
life, but good luck.
Yeah.
But how do you speak to this idea of the soul coming in and actually, when I said I'm living my dharma, right? And this is Eastern philosophy, but I'm truly, and I know this, I'm 46, and I'm very young. I'll be 47 this year. But again, this is the second sort of part of a career path, but really it's a mission at this point. And there's nothing behind me. There's only forward. And it's such I have chills on my body now when I say it, because it is such a deep knowing. And, and I'm also very logical and rational, and I have rent to pay as well. But how do you speak to those people who are like, I get it, this sounds cool and spiritual, but I have rent to pay. I don't know what to do.
Yeah. So the way that I view it is, so first and foremost, I talk about like soul led, and so the soul leads, and that's the most important thing. And I think that a lot of people have things disorganized, meaning that they put lifestyle or money ahead of soul. So I say, okay, money and lifestyle, these are important facets within the confines of the society that we find ourselves in. That matters. However, the soul needs to come first. And what most people will do is they'll put lifestyle and money first. They'll try to pursue these and they'll be, I'll get to the soul piece later. And I say, no, let's rearrange this. Let's get the soul piece right now. Let's make this the foundation. And then we can build these other facets on top of it. And so if we reorganize it in that way, then we can actually pursue our path that is deeply aligned with ourselves whilst being able to manage, the physical world. Like, hey, I need to pay the bills. And that's, I think, is one of like the key problems. One of the things that I've been talking about with vocations and callings and careers. It's like, hey, let's put the soul at the forefront. Let's actually make your vocation connected, the same thing as soul development for you. And then let's build on top, like, and then we can figure out, okay, how do we make money from this? Because a lot of people will be like, well, I won't be able to make money like that. Well, first we need to figure out what you actually want to do and like, what the actual calling is. We need to know what that is first. Do you even know? Let's start there. And then we can start to look at different avenues because there's always ways to figure out how to do that in a commercial sense. You've got to figure out the soul piece first.
Yeah, well, I feel like what you're ultimately doing in your work is you're guiding people ultimately to trust themselves. Because what do you say about this? The per the person who has no idea. They're like, I don't even know where to start, I don't know. I don't know what I'm passionate about. I don't know. Or gosh, let's drop into the big question. What's my purpose? I'll expand on that in another way later, but because I think it just puts so much pressure on people, unnecessary pressure. Um, how do you respond to individuals who say, I don't even know where to start with this whole soul passion, you know, thing that you're talking about, way, pursuit?
The fundamental problem is that people don't know themselves enough, and they haven't acknowledged different facets of themselves. And so there are these different pieces that are very much connected to our calling. You're probably doing it right now in life in some form, and you're probably even like being attracted to other people out in the world that are living some component of what it is that you're meant to be doing, and being attuned to that and developing that sensitivity to yourself as to what you're getting pulled into, why you're getting pulled into these things. People will tell me all the time, like, I'm not passionate about anything. It's like, okay, what are you doing on the weekends? Like, even if it's just consuming stuff, like, what are you doing? Like, oh, like I'm super into this particular thing. I had someone that was like, I'm not passionate about anything, but my favorite, they keep watching like Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm like, okay, why? Really drawn into Johnny Depp. Turns out she just really wanted to do acting, right? And just wanted to be these more charismatic characters and play that. And then
Mhm.
now she's starting to go on and do like theater roles at a local theater, starting to step into that. But that you are passionate about things. There are things that you're being drawn to. You just don't want to accept it, because if you do accept it, then you've got to look at the context of your life and say, am I actually living towards what I'm meant to be doing, or have I just chosen a path that I wasn't meant to be walking? So that's how I typically approach it. There's a lack of self knowledge.
So many, so many directions to go. I years and years ago in my journal, I was writing. I was in some troubled place wherever, and I was kind of like, oh, searching for the answer. Where, if I could just get, and I landed on this. This came through me where I was like it was like I was asking, show me the path, and then I got into this place, and I still have it. Obviously, it's my journal, and I said, you are the path. And so I've run with that, and I actually created it's a beautiful journal that is part of my business. But you are the path. And so when you say they don't know themselves enough, I mean, that really speaks to my heart, because I really, I agree with you deeply. And it's not easy to just know who you are for so many reasons. I mean, life has been telling you who you are in a multitude of directions, right? Since, we're our upbringing and all the things that come out us. Rare is the person who's really had the experience where, they've been able to to really decide and feel into, what are my values, what are my beliefs, what are my real interests. And I'm going to insert this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because we've also been sold this really incredible fucked up idea that, you know, anything that's creative, especially, oh, the artist, that you were born under a lucky star, because that's a very rare person who gets to live that life. And I'm not even talking about you have to be a celebrity. No, I'm talking about the person who gets to create from their, soul, and put it out into the world in some or many ways, and that allows them to live, to thrive in life, to be prosperous, and to bring in. So when when we say to somebody, oh, what are you passionate about? I think a lot of times what happens is, even if me being the person, I'm passionate about whatever this thing is that isn't, these usual jobs that we've been sold to. Well, I can't even consider, I'm not even looking in that direction as a possibility of, oh, this could be something I could, actually prosper as well as, just have fun expressing, because we have been sold this idea that that is actually really not possible. It's a very select, lucky few. What do you have to say about that?
Well,
I just dropped a bomb on you.
it's just fundamentally wrong. I mean, especially in the modern era. It's just, you can look around, there's so much evidence of people walking paths that are hyper creative, where they're able to support themselves financially. And so, somewhere along the way, you embedded that belief deep within, it's grown strong, you see it as a part of your reality, and there needs to be some sort of untangling around that. Now, that requires some work on the person in order to properly untangle those roots. But there's just such an influx of people that are pursuing paths that are so alternative, so different, so strange from what we've ever seen, that this information isn't being properly absorbed by people that are creative. One of my gripes with creatives is that you're so creative in your medium. Why are you not creative outside of it? Why are you not creative when it comes to the creation of how you want to walk your life? There's so many different ways in which to approach it, to navigate it, to make it different, to make it suited to you, to create it in such a way that you're like, I love this life. Can we use some of that creativity in how you go ahead and walk your own path?
Oh, it's so well put, so beautiful. And obviously, there's different phases. We could be speaking to someone who just got out of school and is, entering the work world. We could also be talking to, and I know many women, and there's men obviously too, but who are deep in the game with their career, but they're at this place where they know, whether they want to admit it or not, that they're not happy and it's not serving them and they feel stuck for a lot of reasons, whether it's financially or it's the sunk cost fallacy. Like, I've just invested so much in this. How could I walk away? I mean, I'm sure that because you have an incredible community that I want to get into, the career archetypes. Do you work with the full range of individuals? So somebody who's just getting going, and then somebody like I just mentioned who's deep in the game and sort of at a crossroads.
Yeah, so the majority of the work that I'm focused on is people that are in this beginning phase of how do I actually choose the right career path, which is this
Mhm.
requirement of how do you find the right knowledge. But we actually just introduced these monthly themes designed specifically for people in their vocations, so that it's deeper in. So you've been going for a longer period of time just because people have been badgering me about it. So I'm like, okay, let's start working on this. But it is like it's 30, 40 more plus years of your life. And so there are many different challenges. It's not just about purely knowing, but you've got to be able to navigate it ongoing. And there are future crossroads as well later on, as I'm sure you'd probably know and you've navigated yourself.
Yeah, well, curious to your thoughts around this idea of, here's another. We've been sold, you have to have it all figured out. And I so passionately argue that. I mean, I know just through my own life, because I zigged and I zagged. Now I'm in a place where I can actually, like, the dots really connect,
Mm.
even though it made no fucking sense at all. One day you're an event promoter and the next day you're doing Oscar, nominated, makeup and red carpet. And, but I can thread it now really powerfully. And the best part for me is that I genuinely, every move I made, I have this quote: you can't make a wrong move when you make a true move. And those are the only moves that come from the heart. So as long as you make true moves, even if they don't make sense or they don't connect, you can stand in them because they're true. And then comes the trust that, it's taking you somewhere that, you're here to go. But I think another one of the big errors in this fallacy of just, you when it comes to career and, the work life is that no, you have to have it all figured out. It needs to be this packaged situation. It's like almost like a one and done. And that really robs so many individuals, first and foremost, of self mastery and certainly self actualization. What do you say on this?
I think you're absolutely spot on. I see the vocation not as a step ladder, but as this unfolding, organic story full of twists and turns. If you've ever seen truffle dogs, right? They will go and they will go and like find the scent of these different truffles, and they have to like go left and they go right and they go like, jumping over things, and you don't know where they're going. That's more like what a vocation is actually like. It's like becoming a sniffer dog, right? You're gonna like follow this scent, and it's gonna take you underneath things and over things, and you're gonna come up against challenges. And people are like, no, it's meant to be like step A, B, C, and for some reason, you can sense that no, that's not quite it, and you got to go this different direction. I've just noticed that vocations just aren't this linear trajectory.
Yeah. No, and what's your I'd love to hear you talk about self-mastery. What does self-mastery mean to you?
For me, it's the development of soul. So trying to develop my soul here on the time that I have on Earth. And this has many different components. One of those is the vocation, but it's also in relationships, health, my own spiritual life, and it's much more holistic as opposed to like a singular focus on just one thing. So that is how I see self mastery. Yeah.
And do you feel that, that there's a strong connection between, someone's career journey and their journey of self-mastery?
Yeah, I see it as a really big piece of it and a really important piece of it.
Mhm.
That without having that vocation correct, that you can't achieve the self mastery piece. Now, I think that there are certain people that have different facets where it's more important, and there are some people that where it's less important. But it's important nonetheless. Like it's in the life. It's in the architecture of the life.
And what do you say to the person who is multi-passionate and they they just don't know how to sort of, well, here's another thing that we've been sold, which I'm very anti.
We're just gonna go through
I know.
all of
You're
your
like, you're
list.
like, you're like, I am a total rebellion in a lot of, well, here, because I'll just package it by saying, because I think we have been, I feel like I'm the heart's publicist. I'm giving the heart a rebrand. I kind of just put it all back to the heart, because we can't be controlled in the heart, but we can be controlled in the mind. And I feel like the whole setup has been, just to become another fucking brick in the wall. And so, and look, I can actually understand why some of this has come into the picture. We live in a society, we have to, navigate life together. I get it. I feel for so many who are really underplaying themselves, and, for all the dreams that are dying in the graveyard because those people didn't, they were afraid, and, or they, just couldn't, they didn't know how, and that's why, again, I think your work is so important, because you're really helping individuals trust themselves and to take those steps into self-realization, self-mastery, and to create a vocation, a life, really, because we spend so much time working, really, that actually fills you up. That, like in the beginning of the conversation, you said, I was like walking through mud, drudging, and this, you're guiding people to be getting out of bed, excited to get into it. So, where I was going to go with us is just to say this other idea of you have to niche down. And I do understand from a business entrepreneur, I get it. I get it. Like, what's your main focus, right? You don't want to be the, 20 person, they don't know. But I also think there's something in there that's not okay too, because now we're putting someone in a box. So yeah, what's your take on that? Run with it.
Well, I do think so. There are people who are suited to that approach of the singular-minded, niche down, and I too have. I run my own business. I understand where people are coming from. I've heard the advice of the niching down, and I get that. But my issue is always that, hey, some people are built differently. Some people are destined to succeed in different ways. And by pursuing this singular-minded or just purely just only focus on this one thing, it rejects this group of people. And these people can serve humanity, serve the world in a way that can really help us, whereby the model isn't sort of set up for them. And this is multi-passionate people, people that are able to overlap different passions and interests. And they often find these different unique novel sparks of these overlaps of different ideas. And it's funny because this has been there throughout history. I mean, so many people will cite the example of Leonardo da Vinci, to like the greatest genius of our time. How multi-passionate was he, right?
Yeah,
Just like
totally.
pure
It's like,
multi-passionate to the bone, hyper curious in so many different domains, so many different domains that weren't even like domains at the time, right? He's exploring anatomy,
Mhm.
and it's not even like a proper setup domain. And so he's following this, and
Right.
yet he's held up in culture as like here's this high figure of who we should look to aspire towards as the height of human achievement. And yet in our own society and the way that's built right now, we're like, but hey, Da Vinci, you should definitely niche down. It's like, what? No, we don't want Da Vinci to niche down. We want him
No,
to
we don't.
unfold and become who he's meant to be. And the same goes for other
Yeah.
multi-passionate people. And so some people also say, well, that's Da Vinci, right? That can't be me. I need to. So that's like,
Mhm.
no, you don't understand your potential. You have so much more within you. And by really stepping into and embodying who you are, you can have all these different expressions of interest. Now, do they need to be organized and structured in particular ways? Do we have to come up against certain aspects of reality? Yes, we do. There were many unfinished projects by Da Vinci, as an example. And so there is this needing to come to bring things to fruition that many multi-passionate people do need to do, but to reject that side of yourself, to say, I should only be focused on one thing, rejects one of your gifts. And I think that that is a real tragedy that we want to avoid. And that's why I will be harping on about multi-passionate people. Like, hey, this is amazing that you're this way. You can build a vocation this way. It's just a matter of figuring out the right type of structure for you.
Do you have any is there any part of your work with multi-passionate people where you are helping them not by any means move into a niche obviously, but sort of narrow some of it down? Because I imagine that there's because I know, my own work with, some people are like, "Oh my God, I have so much stuff." Do you have any tips? Do you help them narrow down in some ways?
Yeah, definitely. So we can't do everything. We do have to confront
Right.
reality, and we have a certain amount of time in this life. So I mean, one thing is like, hey, don't just focus on one thing. You can probably do two or three things, and then just like
Mm.
continuing to feed and nurture those two or three things at the same time. There's also this idea of like, hey, do one thing for a little bit of a period, and then bring another one in. One way that I like to sustain myself, because I too am someone that is interested in many different things, is I'll go really, really deep on something for a period of time. But I always have an hour or 2 hours scheduled within my day where I'm just doing a couple of different things. For me, a lot of it is studying. So I'll study like random topics. One minute I might be studying like French philosophy, another minute I might be studying a little bit about more modern literature. I might do some reading in that space, and so I might do like 30 minutes of reading there and 30 minutes of reading on another topic. But then I've also got this deep component because that is still necessary and a facet of mastery.
Yeah, the deep work it absolutely is. Are you writing a book at all? Do you have any plans for that?
No plans. So
Not
hit a
yet.
heart, but
Watch. Yeah, I feel like something might change down the line. You heard it here first. He'll bring you back on when that part's coming out. My intuitive self is just sensing something. Um, what is your relationship with curiosity?
it is so important. Curiosity is
Yeah.
so important. And the annoying thing about curiosity is it often destroys plans when it comes to vocation, right? Because you start getting interested in certain things, you start getting pulled away from it. And there is this
Mhm.
sense of sometimes it's like a maze. Sometimes you do meet a dead end, and that sucks. And it's like, I shouldn't have followed this, and I got to come back to center and recenter. But then every now and again,
Mhm.
you go and you find something that you've never found before. So for me, I know that I will go ahead and follow different curiosities. I do have central focus, but I will follow curiosities, and I find that that is incredibly useful. For some other people, I see that they're too curious to a point. And it's like, hey, you need to like build some walls around you in order to like contain and bring some things forth prior to doing further curious things or like pursuing things outside of the walls. That it's just a matter of, once again, self-knowledge.
Yeah. So then that just inspires me to ask you, what is your relationship with discipline?
Yeah, so in the early days, it was really bad. Over disciplined, too rigid, too
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
too structured. I Funny story. Before I ended up leaving my 9 to 5 job, in order to like leave, I ended up waking up at like 4 in the morning to like 8 in the morning to like get things off the ground and get things going. And I had a long period of time where I'd wake up at 4 to 8. And now I'm at a place in life where I definitely don't recommend that. I don't think that that's the best way to transition
That's
out
where
of past.
I wake up at 4.
Okay. All right, if it works for
I
you.
love it though, but I go to bed early though,
Okay.
so
Well, yeah.
I love it.
For me, it didn't work out. And I am finding discipline in prioritization. Like, what is the thing that I can focus on that brings me the correct things that I'm after more so, or I spend more time doing that than potentially like a schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. It's well, and just so you know, so it's my circadian rhythm. I go to bed early, and those dark hours for me, how I frame it in my writing, I'm neither here nor there. It's a very mystical time for me where I can actually download and channel, a lot of my writing or just sort of contemplate on ideas and that, it's just like it's where I give myself that space to just be. Um, and it's certainly not for everybody, but also if I'm going to get super nerdy with you for a second, I'm leveraging my brain waves because I just got out of theta. I'm in deep alpha, and that's when we can really drop in, right? Theta's hypnosis. But so especially because of my work where I really pull from, it's it's not just, the intellectual part of my mind, but it's this inner world, my spirit, my soul. And I feel like I have access to her in those hours. But again, I am a rare bird because no one really wants to crawl into bed at 7 like I do.
Well, it's funny that
It's
you
almost my bedtime.
yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that because there are a lot of writers that I've studied and also worked with, but like the key writer is Murakami, who does the wake up at
Mm.
4 a.m. and he'll just like write for 4 hours and then he'll go and do like a marathon run. And I think he just listens to like classical music and chills and reads afterwards. And that's just like the perfect approach for him. And so, yeah, I totally understand that some people are just, that is where they're at their best. And yeah.
Do you have any rituals on this subject? Are there any rituals that, are part of your day-to-day life that just help to ground you and, bring you into, the whatever that sort of frame of mind is that allows you to really go deep into self and, then come into your work with that energy?
Yeah, one of the big ones that I've done more recently over the past year, I'm really big into personalized affirmations. And so what I'll do is I will record myself about something really, really specific that I am looking to work on. And then I'll just do like a few affirmations that I feel like hard hitting to me so that they're very like personalized. So some people when I've been doing affirmations with other people, some people like it to be more uplifting, and some people need like a bit of a hard hand. I'm more of the like bit of a hard hand type person, so I'll like say my affirmations in that way, and I'll record that, and I'll just listen to that on loop. And I try to do less affirmations as opposed to more, but just looping the same ones. And maybe I'll listen to that for an hour or so, and I find that like really grounds me in. It has this sort of like a root chakra baseline, like solidity to it,
Yeah,
and that's one of the things that I'm doing, and I've been doing it.
that's really cool. Yeah, that's like a state of you're putting yourself in a state of hypnosis almost, right? You're just, bringing it into your subconscious, and that's incredible. Where as far as where you are in your career right now. So, let's talk about the career archetypes. We touched on it a little bit, but I'd really love to bring it forward now so, there's awareness around your work and what is the career archetypes, and then I'll ask you another question I had. I have so many. Queen of questions.
Amazing, I love it. So
The career archetypes.
yeah, the career archetypes. This is this base level pattern that I believe resides at the bottom of your soul that indicates and helps you to anchor into what your calling is. So oftentimes we'll know it as titles. So like I mentioned, I'm a philosopher. Some people are like an artist, or a writer, or a perfumer, or a holistic healer. We recently had in our community, some people have unearthed their queer archetypes as, I'm just trying to remember, the prophet. We had a cultural catalyst. People are finding what their base level pattern is that they need to step into and live out in the world. So that's really what it is. It connects you to this anchor point that grounds you in what your calling in the world is.
That's amazing. So I'll get, just for fun, I have to give you some in my about my bio. I'm an oracle. I'm a scribe. I'm a mystic. I'm just on the whole archetype thing, but it is very true. You know, it's funny. A fun personal story. When I was in the 7th grade, I got in trouble in my class for talking. I really loved connecting. I wasn't trying to, you know, be a quote bad kid, laughing at that. I was just, being me. And anyways, I got in trouble. And so the teacher, he said he had my mom come into class and sit with me while we all took a test, which is like very embarrassing, right? Mom's coming to sit in school with you. And then here I am all these years later, and this is what I do. I speak, and I'm a communicator. I was certainly born to communicate. Um and so anyways, I just fun share, but also just thinking about, I love how you position it in the soul, this archetypes that are really rooted in your soul. I mean, again, because this is the work I really believe that people now more than ever, it's really time to get clear and just to connect with this not just this idea, but this actuality about oneself.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and there's also never been a better time in history to start to pursue
Hmm.
what it is that your calling is. And there's just so much opportunity out in the world for people to go ahead and pursue their calling. So being able to connect them with that place of, hey, this is what my soul is, and then having so many different options as to how to begin approaching that out in the world, it's just like it's ripe for this, which is why I'm like, hey, everybody, pursue it.
Yes. What does it look like in so the career so because I know there's a course and there's, but just paint that picture, just for somebody who is like, how do I work with you?
Yeah,
So
so I run a community and it helps people to choose the right career path with this deep inner conviction through this unearthing process. And so this process, what we do is I show people how to look at themselves in multiple different lenses because I mentioned before about self-knowledge. There are pieces of yourself that you know about yourself, but then there are pieces of yourself that you have no idea about. And so I need to bring that perspective to light. And so I will use different lenses. I will use things like Jungian psychology. I use some astrology. I use some, there's these different barriers. I call them these becoming barriers. And we need to identify what your barriers are. We look at your different interests and we try to distill them down to the basic essence of these interests. So sometimes we have many different interests, but they're all speaking to one particular energy. It's like, what is that? And we need to identify that.
yeah.
Uh, we go over your life mythology, like where have you been, where are you at the moment, where are you going, or where are you trending to go. We put all this basically together, and I go through this process where people will go through all this information, and that's where this awareness of, oh, this is what my career archetype actually is, and we ritualize it. We have the sacred naming ritual. People come to a sense of like, oh, this is what it is, and then they get to experience this deep inner knowing, whether they've never had the opportunity to do. Because many people that I have in the community, they've been trying to figure out what their calling is for like decades. I literally had someone that was been in there, and she's like, I've been looking for this for 15 plus years. Like I've been searching, and that breaks my heart that people have been searching for so long to find their calling, and it was just a matter of giving them the right perspective.
Yeah. No, that's so beautiful. That's got to feel so good when they hit that place where, because I heard you say it in your podcast, because you also have a podcast. And you said something, I can't remember exactly, this part I do remember, but it was, you were talking about, when someone's unhappy in their job, their career, and it's creating a separation between yourself. And I really love that because all my work is capital SELF. It's the self volumes over here. And so literally. And I, I even frame burnout as you've just completely disconnected with yourself, because even if we look at what are the things one does to recover from burnout, well, it's going to be meditation, it's going to be these, you know time in nature, it's going to be things that bring you back into self, into, hopefully, so at least as close as you can, get into more of a place of wholeness, which I think is a journey in of itself, right? But I love that there is this focus, and, like the woman that you just shared her story, she had to have had that incredible feeling of just, like, I know myself, I feel home with myself by just getting to that very vital information that you guided her towards. It's incredible.
It's like it's there within you. It's just a matter of seeing that it's there within you. And it's funny that you bring up burnout as well, because oftentimes people that are burnout, they'll like obviously they'll burn out, they'll crash, they'll stop, and then they're forced into an introspective place where they have to like they're forced there because they need that. You need that to be human. You need to be able to sit with yourself, be in isolation every now and then with yourself. And so a lot of people will as well go through career transitions post burnout because they're forced to reflect. And then they have to say, like, is this actually how I want to live? And some people say, like, no, and they start to move in the right direction. And some people are like, I'm going to numb that. I'm just going to keep going.
Right.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right. That is so true. Often I say, the path to self-trust, sometimes you have to go against yourself, even though you knew inside, but you have to take that lesson to learn to never do it again. And I think it's that same thing. Sometimes some people have to be brought to their knees in that way, and, burnout, whatever, all of it, and get to this place where it's just enough. And, it's kind of, sometimes I call it like a Mack truck moment. It's
Yeah.
like you're just like, you know and hopefully, you aren't the one that turns to numbing, because all that's doing is just delaying the process, and actually it's like putting salt in the wound. You're just going to keep, dragging yourself through that mud, and really it's, yeah. So yeah, I can go on and on, but n- I we're going to say something.
Oh, I was just only going to say that the clues are there prior to burnout, and a part as well of walking a vocation is becoming really, really sensitive to those clues, like just becoming like really, oh, this thing popped up and it's not quite right, or this thing popped up and it's a little bit more correct. And the more you get attuned to that, the easier it is. There's always going to be challenges in your vocation, but the easier it is to walk in a way that is developing yourself.
Yeah, self-awareness, right? I always, it's to me, it is the most important attribute, quality. I mean, without that, what are you even doing? Where are you? You
Where are
right?
you?
And
So,
where are you? Where are you? But it's funny, Joel, because my work, I'll just dish it out here. I've said it on podcasts so many times. I'm like, I'm selling you on self-awareness, but this is not an easy sell, not in today's society, because it's not Instagrammable. You can't sleep with it. You can't hang it on your wall. You can't drive in it. You can't wear it, but yet it affects every aspect of all of that, all the facets of your life. Self-awareness, your self-awareness is absolutely impacting every domain of your life. So it's what's yeah. Do you I'd love to hear you talk about self-awareness, and also, do you have any practices that you I mean, I feel like you're a very self-aware individual, and I feel, again, you're very introspective, you're a deep thinker, you're a feeler. Do you have any practices that you yourself, do, or also with the people that you work with, to help them strengthen their self-awareness?
I am definitely obsessed with understanding myself. So I
Yeah.
feel like you can never have too much of that knowledge. Uh, in terms of practices, like I'm always interested in any sort of uh, mode of, especially if I come up against something that is a little bit, is that is that thing teaching me something about myself? So like everything that happens in life can teach you about yourself. Like even if you go to the shops and then you walk into a particular store, like why did you choose that store and somebody else chose another store? Like it's always there's always information to be gathered. So a lot of the times it's just about reflecting on that stuff. But I love diving into my own personal psychology and reflecting on that psychology, more akin to some form of like analysis of self. I love different, I'll try out so many different personality tests or personality tests out there. Like I've tried them, I've done them, I've looked at them. Anything that's like that, I will be looking and seeking reflections from other people. At like one great thing that I find I get a lot of information from is, and I did this early on, and it helped me to open up to what my calling was that I actually sent the five really close people and then also like five friends this message, and I essentially asked them like, hey, what do you think my strengths are? What do you think my weaknesses are? And what do you think I could be really, really great at? And I asked them these questions, and they sent back the feedback. And then in a bit of a nerdy way, I went and I said, like, what's the patterns? And I grouped these different things together and ended up finding these different perspectives on myself that showed me like, hey, you've got alternative perspectives on things. And I remember reading that and thinking, like, do I? I didn't even know that about myself. And like later on, other people were like, well, that's pretty obvious that you have a bit of an alternative viewpoint on things. But I didn't even know that about myself. So reflection and feedback from others has been really useful. Obviously, depends who the feedback is coming from, and you've got to be like cautious because like you can run into some people that you know in your life. You're like, I do not want to tell that person or give them an opening for this moment for them to like swing. So that does matter. But yeah, those are some of the sources.
You need a strong counsel that you trust. Yeah, no, that is a brilliant idea, actually. And I think everybody who's watching or listening, I invite you to, I mean, regardless of what your career, even if everything is wonderful in your career life, I think it's great information, to get from, again, a counsel that you really trust. So even if it's two people, right, it's fine. But that data is really, really important. And I agree with you. I don't think that we can never stop learning more about ourselves, because not while we're here, at least, right? Because every day we're engaging with life. And I always say, like, nothing is a waste. Everything is material, right? And especially as a writer, it's like I pull on all my experience of life and put it into my writing and even my speaking, the things I share. So I really appreciate that. When we are thinking about Joel's career and where you are now, do you feel like you're in your dharma? Do you resonate with dharma?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's on the horizon for you? Is there something that you're looking to create, something? What's the vision sort of pulling you forward from here?
So, I mean, one of the main things that I'm focused on is vocations. I think it's fundamentally understood out in the world. I think the way that we see careers is broken, it's outdated, and it's just something that I'm deeply connected on. So I'm trying to understand vocations at all the different stages in an incredibly deep way, which is requiring lots of time, lots of research, and that's why I am working with people in this way inside of a community where I'm getting that real feedback and real understanding of like, hey, what are you actually going through in the world? Because sometimes I often will find that like sources are giving, if you go and read certain books, they give you sort of like a framework, but if you talk to real people, they're going to tell you like, hey, this specific thing is happening, and I want to understand that. So I basically want to be like a philosopher on the ground with the people, understanding like what is going on with you guys, what is happening, what stage are you at, and that's really where I'm just focused on at the moment. And I'm building a philosophy around that so people can use that to navigate their vocations. And I feel like I'll be here for decades at this point.
Yeah, no,
And
it's
that's
beautiful.
where I am, and that's where my energy's going.
What about AI? What do you feel about AI as it relates to people and work? And yeah, just what's your take on it?
Yeah, I think it's going to change fundamentally the workplace and the way that we know it. There are so many different aspects that it's
Mhm.
going to come in and disrupt. And one of the things I've been talking with people about is that we need to focus on things that aren't going to change, meaning like things like deep human connection, communities, and these building these relationships with other people, these areas of emotional work, healing work, spaces of like human-made creativity. There are these zones that technology isn't really going to impact. And so, okay, what's going on there? Are we understanding that? And is your vocation in that? Or if it's not, and there's this AI thing going on, are you prepared? So that is coming. I always like to think of it like,
Yeah.
let's run with it, let's go with it, because every
Yeah.
technology wave that's come in has moved things and changed things, and that's okay. It's part of nature. Things are going to change. So that's currently how I'm
Right
seeing
there
it.
with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, you can't, it's like, think about people resisted the email. I mean, I think it's very romantic to write letters. It's just not, when society, when technology is integrated like this, especially AI, I mean, it's changing the fabric of our society, our reality, really. And so it is this thing where we could always be fearful, or we could be optimists, about it, and maybe even clever in the ways at which we can leverage the shifts and the change to, better ourselves in our lives, right?
Hmm.
That's how I think about
Yeah,
it.
definitely, definitely. And it doesn't change your vocation either. So, for example, if
Yeah.
universal basic income comes in and suddenly people don't have to earn money, you still have a calling within you. You still have something that you need to be doing in this lifetime. And that's going to be there because that's the development of your soul and it's the requirement within this human existence. So even if like AI comes in and suddenly we have a society where so many people don't have to go and get employed, you still have a calling, you still have to develop yourself, you're still going to have this need for growth, for self-understanding,
Yes.
and that's not going away.
Yeah. If anything, I think, what it looks like, we'll see. But some of AI coming in, I mean, it looks as though it could take some of the jobs that people really don't want, those sort of mundane, just kind of, it opens up basically room for people to be more creative and more specific, things that AI can't come and do, right? I mean, we could look at it from either way, right? Oh, it's taking all the work. It's like, well, no, maybe it's going to take off some of the things that aren't, you know, that specific or unique, or certainly dropped in, from the soul, right?
Yeah.
AI is not going to be able to do, I mean,
Oh,
yeah.
you just reminded me of, I think I saw a note on Substack, and it was just like a newspaper clipping of someone being quoted, like, I want technology to do my dishes, not to do my art. And it's like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Let's position it in the correct space. Yeah.
Exactly. That's how I mean, we'll find out, but that's how and again, I think it's your outlook, right? Because we can always, and we are more likely to look through the lens of fear, but I think it's a muscle that you train. And I'm not this I choose optimism because to me optimism is different than positivity. Optimism is this state of, well, I can look and see the reality of things, the situation, the circumstance. I'm going to choose to look to the positive, irrespective of, if shit goes down, I'll be able to navigate it, appropriately. It won't take me down. So, I'm just running now with it, but running off a ledge, basically. It's my bedtime. No, I'm just kidding. Joel's like, I'm ready for my fucking second cup of coffee, Rox. No. But anyways, optimism is this a blend of realism and positivity. And I think it's really a muscle. It's a filter, but the more you flex it, the easier it is to operate life with that filter versus the fear filter. So, okay, I didn't totally fall off there.
Yeah.
Joel, I want to talk about your Substack because it's brilliant and I love it. I actually, I have a writing challenge happening right now with an incredible community of women, and it's so badass. And I dropped one of your, I call them essays. I don't know if you do, but posts in there the other day, and was sharing about you. And there was such great feedback. I really love your Substack. So I'd love for you to just talk about it and just, share with the world what is your Substack? A lot of people still don't even know what Substack is, and it's my favorite place online.
I do. I love Substack as well. I just find that it's just such a different social media platform. It's just like,
Mhm.
uh,
Yeah.
in terms of what it's about, it's really just about me just trying to educate people on how to pursue their vocation in the world and just dropping in different lessons where I feel is appropriate. But it is about this idea of, hey, you have a calling. What is that calling? Once you know your calling, let's go ahead and pursue that, even in spite of any sort of challenges or objections that you might have. Like we mentioned before, the parents that might come in, or even just a sense of like the enormity of it internally. Some people will come into connection with their calling and it's like, it's too big. It's like, I can't do that. That's not for me. Confronting
Yes.
that head on. And yeah, I'm just trying to educate people about vocations and the way that it can be restructured and reseen within the modern world.
I love it. Okay, so rounding this out here, I'm just so grateful. Thank you again. I said this, I don't remember if I said it in the recording, but before we started, I really see you as an ally, and I'm certainly behind you and what you're doing in the world. I'm very grateful that I came across your work. I really believe that what you're doing and it's just going to continue to build. I see it for you. I feel it for you. And I know that there's a demand. There's certainly such a big place for it. So I'm very, very grateful to have your time, especially top of day. I know how that is when you're just coming into it, and then you have to activate the brain. So thank you. Thank you so much. What just final kind of anything that last words, or I don't know, is there something when you come on and you podcast or you speak to people, is there something that almost, you would love to be asked, but no one's asked you yet?
Well, that's a really good question, but I haven't thought about it. Um,
That's okay.
yeah, no, like nothing really. I think one of the things that I do like to tell people is that inner truth that you find, however you find it, believe it. Like believe it and build on it. And so it does come from an internal place. And so I know how my students come to an awareness of it, but however you do come to an awareness of it in your own life, like believe that to be true. I just find that there's so much noise out in the world, distractions out in the world, temptation paths out in the world, that when you do come into a sense of inner truth, believe it.
Boom. That's such a mic drop. Joel, thank you so much. Truly.
Thank you for having me.
Until the next.
Until the next.
Yes,
Absolutely.
my absolute pleasure. Until the next.
Thanks so much for listening, you guys. Please like, subscribe, and share. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating and review.